This is The Talk, a podcast series where African Americans and Jewish teens get together to talk about their lives and issues they care about, to learn about each other's backgrounds and cultures, and to build new friendships.
This episode is also called The Talk. This episode is about the daily issues that each community faces in Madison, the discrimination, and how each community deals with those issues, as well as how our parents talk about these issues with us and how we talk about it among our friends and peers.
You should introduce yourself first.
Okay. My name is Sanat. I go to Verona and I'm a freshman.
My name is Pierre. I'm 17. I go to La Folla High School. My pronouns are he, him, his.
I am Benny. I am a senior in high school, and I use they, he pronouns. Question 1. When you hear the phrase the talk, what does it mean to you?
I think you should go first.
Why should I go first?
I mean...
Okay, fine. Generally, when I hear, the talk, my brain automatically goes to, the sex talk. Ever since, the whole performative activism uplift in, 2019, 2018, when there were a bunch of, actually really good books about Black people and about the Black experience that everyone was kind of reading, I read The Hate U Give, and they referred to the talk as the, police talk, and since then I've sort of had those as the two definitions in my brain.
As Benny said, to talk about police, how we, our encounters for the police, how to be more prepared. Mm-hmm. I think I've had to talk about toxic masculinity and also the hardships that comes with being Black. I had to talk about that one too.
Me personally, my parents talk to me, but they don't, when we talk, there's so many things that we talk about. So it's not just, one specific one. Maybe something would be keep your grades up, or try to, surround yourself with good people, your friends. I think, the talk that we mostly, something that keeps coming up in some of our talks is, the people that I hang around with and, the people that I surround myself with, friends. Are they good? Do you trust them? That type of talk. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
One other thing that I just thought of is this wasn't a sit down talk about it type of talk, but throughout the years, what to do if you get assaulted or if someone attempts to kidnap or assault you is a really big thing that specifically with mother figures and other female friends is something that's really big. That sort of leads into the next question, which is the talk different for girls than for boys, and why? I personally feel that it might be. Obviously, the talk about toxic masculinity, while both could get the talk about toxic masculinity, it would be a different talk. I am trans, I'm non-binary, but I was given the talk for people who are assigned female at birth. So for me, it was sexual assault. It was the clothes that I wear. It was about what to do, why not to walk alone at night, things like that. Whereas for boys, it may be different.
You said you were non-binary. Have you had to talk about being a part of the LGBTQ community?
With friends, yes. My parents have an interesting perspective on the LGBTQ community, so I have not had a sit-down talk with them about it. But I've had people shout slurs at me on the street just walking around, and there are certain places where I'll put a hat on to cover up my hair or something, or act more traditionally feminine or masculine in order to pass as cisgender in certain areas. For safety, because visually speaking, when you look at me, you might not be able to tell that I'm Jewish, but you can probably tell that I'm queer. So because of that, there's obviously it's not the same thing as having a skin color that you obviously can't hide, but there are certain situations where it can be important to figure out how to hide that, which really sucks.
Is there spaces where you feel like you can truly be yourself?
I do have a couple spaces, specifically with close friends. Like if we're at my friend's house, all lying on top of each other and watching stupid movies, like that feels like a very safe space to me. My school is a very safe space. I'm currently attending Madison College, which is a community college in the area. It has like a very diverse population, and it is overall generally a very safe campus because the people going there genuinely want to learn and they genuinely want to get the certificates and take the classes that they're taking, as opposed to going like because their parents told them to or because they feel like they have to go to college.
All right.
What about you? Do you either of you have anything to add about like the assigned female versus assigned male at birth talk?
Yeah, this is come like later in like my teens. I think it was like probably around 13 when like girls became like an interest. I had a talk with, I think I'm gonna say my uncles first. They were like, I'm not saying a talk. It was like more of a they talk, I listen. It was like peer pressure type thing where it's like, you got a girlfriend yet? Where your girlfriend at? You got some buns yet? Like it was like
It's the male version of the have you had children yet?
something like that, right? Now, my dad input on it. I think he wanted me to wait till marriage, and he's a pastor, so he's coming from like, have read the Bible perspective. He's like, you can do this, but if you do like partake in sexual activities, you have to repent for it and make sure that when you do partake in those activities with someone else, make sure that person is someone you care about. So it's like, it has to have a meaning. Don't just be doing it to seem cool or have the approval of others.
Me personally, like you said, the assigned female at birth or like assigned male at birth. That talk with my parents, my mom kind of just like pulled me in her room. She was like, "So they teach you all of this at school, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Okay." And then she just like told me about like how to be safe if I'm like alone or with or if it's like getting late, just like how to protect myself, how to like know when it's safe, like I don't know, it's just like there's certain things where like you have a feeling like, oh, I like probably shouldn't be here, and like especially as a female, like when it's like getting late at night, like because I like to go on walks, I like to ride my bike. She'll be like, just like no, like if you're like, since we live in like a big city, like just know like you're a girl and there's like things that can obviously happen. It's not like a perfect world. And so that's like kind of the talk that I had when it says like if it is different for boys and girls.
Okay, advancing to the next question. I can hit the numbers.
It's number 3.
Do you think your experience growing up in the early 21st century is different from that of your parents growing up in the middle to late 20th century?
I mean, there's a lot of improvement that's been made.
Yeah.
Like even in the last 5 years. Speaking from a Jewish perspective, Jesus religions in general, I don't know what else to call them, I'm so sorry, but they are a lot less the norm. For example, Muslim people and like Hindu people and Buddhist people are speaking out a lot more about their experiences. And like, obviously I live in a really good country where religion cannot be outwardly prosecuted. There are other moments where it can be a downside. But it's definitely an improvement even to like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. I think like in my family or like in my personal experiences, it has changed like for the better, a lot for the better, because I come from an African family. They're very religious. My dad, like, he's not a pastor, but like he's very involved in the church, and so is my mom. And so like when they were growing up, like it was like respect your elders, like women, like it was very segregated, but like not towards race, but like towards gender
roles.
And like I feel like that's changed a lot. Like now, like even through my parents, like I see like my mom does most of the work, and I'm just like, oh, but like like in my life, I would like us not to be like, I don't know how to say it, like to be restricted to like a certain role or like something that we have to do. Like, oh, like women have to stay in the kitchen. Like, I don't know. I feel like
Make
that's
me a sandwich.
like that it's changed a lot for the better, and like I think it's really good.
I agree. I have been very lucky to live in a household where my parents are divorced. They divorced when I was like 1. But my dad, who I grew up with, he married my mom when I was like 2 or 3. He's the one who does like all the cooking and a decent chunk of the cleaning. And he and my mom, they both work full time. They're both like contributing equally to the household in different ways. Sometimes one of them will load the dishwasher and the other one will take it out and load it again. They're both very like opinionated people, and they both like having things done their way. So when we deep clean the house, dad always mops because he does it better. But when it's just a normal clean, like mom will mop. And so I've been very lucky to have like this model of like, don't date someone who forces you to do all the chores. Don't date someone who you don't have an equal and communicative relationship with. I think in general, something that's been really normalized is having really poor communication, especially with partners, where it's like, oh, you can't even look at another person. Like you have to only look at me and you have to talk to me every hour and tell me where you are. Or like, you can't eat that. You have to look a specific way. You have to wear specific clothes. And this is something that's been very normalized in the media. But like my partner and I will just casually sit down and talk and be like, hey, this is something that I saw on the internet that people are concerned about. Like, are you concerned about that? For example, liking pictures on Instagram. If my friend posts a bikini pic, I'm liking their bikini pic. And I'm sending it to my boyfriend. And I'm being like, hey, this person's really hot. And he'll be like, yes, this person's really hot. Like, that trust is something that I feel is not normalized in a lot of relationships. Which, like, if those are your boundaries, if you don't want someone liking someone's bikini pic, I get that. But, like, man, trust your partners. Communicate. Use your words.
From what I can think, my experience compared to my parents, I currently live with my mother, single mother, but I do have contact with my father. I think we got a strong relationship now. We had our times, just like all relationships. It was like strong, then like a little break, then strong again. I hope that to keep on that path. Trying to think of my dad growing up. He didn't live with his mom or his dad. His dad was in jail, and his mother were doing other activities. So he lived with his grandmother. I could love Grandma Phyllis. Shout out her. He said that he grew up with a lot of anger towards the world, and I think our parents' goal is to make sure that we, like, our journey in life is better than theirs. So that's what I mean. He's like sort of paving the way for that for me. And my mom's perspective, my mom was a nerd when she was a kid, but I think she had to be that way.
Shout out for the nerds.
Right. But I think she had to be that way because of the time she was in, where, say, black girls were like, it's like, I don't know how
They were downgraded.
Yeah, like just
Still
for the
are.
color of skins and being a woman at that's
Yeah.
two downs. So I think with her studying the books and being who she is today, great woman, that sort of like just paved the way for me and giving me like aspirations of what I want to be, inspirations. Man.
The program I'm in emphasizes diversity in STEM. So I went to West High School originally, and there was like one black person in any of my classes, just total. And then I got to the STEM Academy, and I was like, whoa, there's people who are white. They exist. And it was really nice to be able to see those perspectives and see these people who are first-generation college students and who aren't first-generation college students, like being women of color in STEM or being like just really amazing people with amazing attitudes. And it was just such a change because the only black people I've been exposed to were like, most of them were very disruptive in class. They were skipping. And obviously that's not like the whole race. That's just the ones in, I guess, that area were. And it was just really cool to see like different perspectives and stuff like that.
I think you should introduce the next question.
Why should I introduce?
Because it's targeted for us, but it's still like.
Why does it not introduce the next question?
Okay. Question number 4 is for the African American kids, me and Pierre. Were you surprised to hear that Jews also have concerns about safety?
I wasn't.
I wasn't surprised because obviously, like, there are just like things that are like, it's just not even just for Jews, like just people in general, like there's safety concerns for everybody. So I wasn't like too surprised, but it was like eye-opening to see how you guys are concerned for your safety, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, like it was just eye-opening. It was interesting.
Me personally, I was surprised because from the physical appearance, you come off as a Caucasian person.
Oh yeah.
Right,
I'm
but
translucent.
talking about translucent, but,
I'm not kidding.
I know people find differences to judge, so that's like kind of made me not too surprised that you guys have had hardships.
I will say one thing is that a lot of Jewish people will wear like a Star of David necklace or something, and like I know a lot of them who have recently had to take them off for safety reasons and stuff like that, which it's something that we can take off and we can like put in our pocket and tuck away and not mention, which we have the privilege to do that. But most of us don't wish to change the identity, so we still have to like fight for safety and rights and stuff. And I think it's the intersectionality part of this podcast is really important to me, because I think it was mid-World War I or World War II, I can't remember. But Jews and the Black community were put into the same like housing communities. Neither was allowed to like live in the general population of America. And then at one point, people were like, "Oh, right, Jews are people. They can have houses," and they sort of diverged because Black people were still not allowed to be in the general community at the time. And while there are serious differences between the two pasts, it's also fascinating to see the similarities. And especially living in a place that's like, Madison is one of the most segregated cities in the US, and it's like very majority white. And I feel like it's really fascinating to have the opportunity to like sit down and hear your perspectives. So like, thank you for sharing those. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to like hear these perspectives and talk about this stuff that you don't often get the chance to discuss in everyday life.
I think we sort of just answered the fifth question.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to propose a new one. Could we go more into depth about you guys talk about being a female, both African American and then
Yeah.
Jewish?
Do you want to start?
You could go.
Okay. Ever since I was like, so I wasn't allowed on the internet as a kid, for better or worse. I grew up watching Mythbusters and pirated Mr. Rogers episodes, which explains a lot about me as a person and my mild obsession with explosions. But as I grew older and as I got exposed more to the internet, it became sort of a fact of the matter that at some point in my life I would be assaulted. Like, there would be something that's going to happen that's going to traumatize me. And reading like horror stories on the internet, it's kind of hard to escape them. And hearing these strategies, like a car pulled over in front of me when I was walking alone at night. 30 seconds later, I had a text sent to my best friend with the car's license plate and description saying like, if I don't text you again in the next few minutes, call the cops and tell them this description. I remember almost completely unprompted, I was talking with my stepmom, and she goes, if someone grabs you and they try to take you, pee yourself, because nobody wants to take you if you've peed. They don't want to touch that. Things like yelling fire instead of yelling rape, because nobody cares if you're getting raped, but they'll care if there's a fire. And just growing up, like hearing all this stuff. I think I was 9 or 10 the first time I realized that like a college student was sexualizing me. And on like, I guess the more lighter side of things, I've always been like Eurocentric beauty standards. I'm tall and I'm skinny. And so growing up, I had a very difficult relationship with my appearance and with my body. And I've always been like, I am medically underweight. I've always had a very fast metabolism. And every time I mention that I'm trying to gain weight, people always be like, oh, well, why do you need to gain weight? You're so pretty. Or like, why do you have a poor relationship with your body? You're like perfect. And things like that have just been really harmful. And I'm not saying that like men don't experience body image issues. Obviously they do, but it's generally marketed as like a girl problem. I once tried to explain it to a cishet white man, which was, a great idea, because I said, oh, I don't like looking at the calories on the things that I'm eating because it can be difficult for me. And he goes, well, why do you need that difficulty? Like, why is that difficult for you? You're like perfect. And so I'm like, okay, learning opportunity. Let's assume ignorance before malice. And so I was like, well, a lot of the time when I talk about my weight, people just describe me as perfect, or they'll like romanticize being underweight, or they'll say things like, oh my gosh, do you want my extra? Or something like that, which funny, but dumb. And so I explained this to him. I give him this whole well thought out explanation. And he goes, okay, well, like in my opinion, like I'm sure you're great, but in my opinion, you're like a little too skinny. Okay, buddy. So from like sexual assault to things like that, and a whole bunch of spectrum stuff. And like that's not even getting into like, I'm white. I have the privilege of that. On top of all this, I can't. It's just a very different experience than the difficulties that come with being assigned male at birth.
Yeah. Like, okay, Pierre, what was your question?
I ain't gonna lie, I just forgot.
Basically, like, more of the experience on being a black woman in our society. Like the dangers of it.
Yeah.
Or just existence in general. How do you exist, Sanat?
Me being a black woman, there's like a lot of I don't want to say like pressure, but like it's pressure. Like if like there's some people that will like do something and then people will be like, oh, like they're ghetto black girl. And it's just like, well, we're not all like that. Mm-hmm. There are some people that choose to be like that. Not even like choose, like I'm not even trying to like sound colorist or like racist or anything. But like there are some people that will just like choose to like be I don't know how to say it.
Embrace the stereotypes?
Yeah, will like try and fit those stereotypes like on purpose. Like I know there are some people that like grew up like that's how they grew up, like that's how their mom was like, that's how their parents were like, and like they grew up in that environment. But there are some people that come from like great homes and like don't do those kinds of things and like will try and like forcefully fit themselves into that stereotype just to like be like I don't know, like counted as a black woman. But I don't think that's, you gotta be like that to be counted as a black woman. And there's just a lot of I don't know how to like explain it, but like there's just a lot of pressure from like other people in general, like especially if you're doing good in a class or if you're not doing good in a class. Like I feel like some teachers will be like, oh, like they expect that from you, and they'll like not try and like, I have teachers, I ask them questions about a test or like an assignment, and they'll just be like, oh, like kind of brush me off and like help somebody else. I feel like they kind of expect me to like not succeed. And so I feel like there's a lot of pressure from the outside world to like prove them wrong. But that's just me personally, like to be like, oh, like you thought I was gonna be like a failure, like I was gonna end up on the streets or something, but like I'm doing better than you. Like I feel
good for
like,
you.
Like I just want to prove them wrong. So that was like the pressure on me when I was growing up, and like it still is, grade wise, and like a black being like other than like school and stuff, being a black woman, outside. Like there are so many things that could happen to you. There could be like just being black in general. There could be racial slurs yelled out at you. Even though we've improved on that and like most people like aren't racist, like it's just still like some people still have that bias. Some people like when you go different places, some people will always look at you different, especially being a woman. And then also some people will like look at you even more differently because you're a woman and you're black. And so I feel like it's just not to take other people's words or like actions or the way they look at you into like what actually makes you and how you like react back to that. Like I know some people or know teachers and just like acquaintances that like just look at me weird or like look at me differently because I'm a black woman. And so I'll like not try and like pay them mind because, you know, like my dad always used to tell me when like my brother would like annoy me and I would go snitch on him, he'd be like, he wants you to do that. Like he wants you to like feed into him so he can annoy you more. So like just ignore him and like don't pay attention. Like make it seem like you don't care.
Yeah.
And then he'll leave you alone. So I kind of just take that advice and like run with it everywhere. Like if you put fuel into something that's already like lit up, like if you put gas on a match, then it's just gonna explode. Like there's no good outcome. Yeah. So honestly, just like blocking out those ignorant comments, those like dirty looks and stuff, I feel like, and just the way that you act to like prove them wrong. Like I know a lot of people that like look at me weird or call me whitewashed because I like talk proper or like talk English. I don't know if that makes sense.
You speak so well.
Yeah, like why are you so whitewashed? Like you only hang around white people. Like no, I'm not whitewashed, none of that. Like I don't think my skin is white. It's just like the way I act and like I don't know, because I grew up like that. My parents were African, so they're like very strict, and so they're like you have to prove all these people wrong because they obviously came like from not very good homes, so they want to raise us to be successful, all of that. So like they're like you can't be successful if you are making yourself fit into a bad stereotype. And so I've always like ran with that. So I don't know, like that influences me a lot in life.
I grew up with a lot of internalized racism. My parents' strategy to addressing racism, sexism, all that stuff was if we just don't talk about it, our kid won't realize it exists. I thought that my lesbian rabbi's wife was her nanny until I was like 12. There were 2 black people in my grade in elementary school. One of them left, and then a different one came back. So I was never really exposed to like the black community. And I will admit, going into middle school, when a bunch more black people like joined the school, there were a lot of people who either intentionally or unintentionally met the stereotypes. And while I always tried my best not to judge, I did find myself noticing like, oh, well, I don't want to work with them. They're probably going to be like gross and loud. And obviously, I've spent like a lot of time and a lot of effort like working through that. But I have found myself in the position of like looking at someone and dismissing them and then backpedaling and being like, whoa, let's address that. Let's figure that out. It's like, I'm not saying I understand where those people are coming from because it's still god awful and you should never do that to someone. But what I am saying is that a lot of the time people aren't willing to put in the effort to better themselves. I will mention to my mother, like, oh, well, is it possible you just have like some internalized stuff you need to work through? And she's like, no, I've worked through all my internalized stuff. I promise you haven't. And I think it's really necessary that like all white people and even all people who aren't black, because everybody has different internalized racism about different people, everybody needs to sit down, read some articles, listen to some stories, and like take the initiative to be a better person, not just for the performative aspect. I know a lot of teachers who are like, oh, well, I'm a better person now because I've read the stamped, like, revised edition. I've read The Hate U Give. I'm anti-racist. But it's more than that, and people
I'd be like,
need
good for you.
more than that. Yeah, a lot of the time people are like, yeah, well, I posted a black square on that one day.
Yeah, like-
so, like, I'm so active.
My mom's stylist is black.
Yeah. My mom's best friend's cousin's coworker is actually black, and she has dreads. She has dreads. So, like,
I thought she was being for real. Ain't
no, God, no. No. Sorry. I should put a /J after that one, guys. Yeah, so. White people are racist.
See,
But yeah. Anybody else have any final thoughts?
nah, I think you guys killed it. Of course.
You did too. Don't worry.
Yes, okay.
I take third place. It's still top 3. It's time. We ran out of time, guys, so we got to wrap it up.
Yep.
Thank you all for watching.
Or listening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or listening.
either
This
one.
is Bonnie, Sinat.
It's Benny.
Oh,
Benny.
Benny.
That's Bonnie.
That's why I'm in third place. I'm sorry. We have Benny, Pierre, and Sinat.
This has
Yeah.
been the talk, everybody. We have talked. We have listened. And
Till
now we're
next
going to
time.
go home.
Till next time, guys.
Till next time.